Good evening. Are you wondering how a small town girl like me can create a big-time podcast like Sleeping with Heather? It's easy. I use Anchor. Anchor is free, and there are creation tools that allow me to record and edit my podcast right from my phone or computer. Anchor distributes my podcast for me to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. I make money with my podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Try Anchor today. Good evening, my sleepy little lightning bugs. Yes, you're a lightning bug. Don't deny it. Oh, why? Because it's nighttime, and instead of sleeping, you're flying about with your little light on. You're laying in bed and little ideas are glowing in the darkness. Let's see if we can put your little sleepyhead to bed. Just some housekeeping at the top of the show. If you find that this podcast puts you to sleep, hop on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast and give me 5 stars and leave a review. You can say anything you want. Reviews really don't matter. They just help push you up the charts. And that's great for other little lightning bugs who need help going to sleep. I can do that for them. If you know someone who could benefit from better sleep, tell them about the show. And if they're new to podcasts, show them how to follow. I'm going to ramble on for a little while, so if you feel yourself drifting off, just allow it to happen. It's time. And if you miss something, you can always come back tomorrow, and the day after, and the night after, and the night after, and the night after that. And really, you can just keep going and put this on every night. Go to bed. You can start it when you are brushing your teeth and putting on your jammies. Whatever your nighttime ritual is. Maybe you are applying some Paws cold cream, or, I don't know, checking your tongue in the mirror. Things happen at night before you go to bed, and I understand. I'm not here to judge. I have my own routine, in fact. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Good evening, night listener. You're listening to the Sleeping with Heather podcast. The podcast that puts you to sleep. The time has come to close your eyes. Relax. Listen to the sound of my voice and get ready to dream. Good evening, my friends, and welcome to episode 5 of the Sleeping with Heather podcast. It's been a hot minute. There's so much I've been wanting to share with you. I find it hard to know where to start. I guess I'll begin with my latest obsession. Bees. That's right. Bees are pretty amazing. I learned a lot about them this spring and held off mowing my lawn so that the bees waking up could feast on the pollen and do their little bee things, whatever bees do. Anyway, I started making a list of why bees are so interesting. Granted, this isn't an exhaustive list. I just have a few items. Well, for example, apparently bees have amazing knees. But how about their wings? With their fat little bodies, flight should be impossible. Yet some bees travel 10 miles from their hive because their wings generate tiny hurricanes that lift them upward. What's more, the pollen and nectar they collect sometimes weigh as much as their tiny bodies. Einstein said we'd all be extinct within 4 years after bees die, but some theorize our diets would just change. I would say I'm in the keep the bees alive camp, for sure. Bees can recognize faces, or so they say. Chances are, they probably think your face is a weird flower. Their brains are the size of sesame seeds, and they only have 950,000 neurons, which seems like a lot, but it's not. They should be stupid, but they're not. Their neurons are very specialized. When was the last time someone said your neurons were specialized? Bees can be trained to detect explosives, and they have personalities and can exhibit a proclivity for adventure. And some have even exhibited pessimism, which shows bees have feelings. They help us understand mental decline in humans. Honeycombs are the most efficient structures in nature. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Don't grab your phone. Google more about it tomorrow. Maybe when you're drinking your coffee or on the bus to work, after you figure out the day's Wordle. Which reminds me, I haven't attempted Wordle today. That is part of my late night ritual. I usually go to bed about 10:30. I start unwinding, brush my teeth, get into jammies, blah, blah, blah. I open up my phone and I solve Wordle on the first try. Just kidding. My neurons aren't specialized in that way. Anyway, I wonder how many people have gotten Wordle on the first try in the whole history of Wordle. Wouldn't it be really cool to be, I think it's omniscient. I think it's all-knowing. And you could just know things at any time about anything. Take our example of Wordle, for instance. Or do you ever fly over a cathedral pine forest and just wonder how many bears are hibernating there right now? How many bears reside in those woods? How many little bunnies are hopping about? Knowledge for no reason. It'd just be sort of interesting to just know things. which sort of reminds me of a story, maybe? I'm not sure. The Wizard of Oz is now in public domain, and if I wanted to entertain you for a little while, I could read it. But I'm doing something different this episode. Normally, I'll take about a week and a half, and I'll just punch out a script. And I'll revise it, or I'll scrap it and I'll start over. It's a pretty long and arduous process. But what I'd like to try on tonight's show, what I've always wanted to try, but haven't had any luck with, is winging it. And I figured, let's just come up with it on the spot. So about 2 minutes before I began recording, I sort of had this idea for the Wizard of Oz. Sure, Dorothy's there, but instead of Toto, maybe she has a one-eyed, three-legged rescue pit bull. I guess we'd call him Turner, because that's what tornadoes are. Turners. Spinners, I guess. They turn. Anyway, Dorothy had just gotten home from choir practice, which is kind of off script. Anyway, she was really exhausted because she's not too particularly fond of choir practice. She has a hard time keeping up with her extracurriculars. She's in all AP classes, so she really has to devote a lot of her time to calculus homework, which doesn't seem like it would make much sense for a young girl on a prairie. Maybe someone who stands to inherit a dust farm one day. But then again, I could be wrong. I've never studied calculus. I couldn't even begin to tell you how that works. But that doesn't matter. We're getting a little off topic. And actually, doesn't really matter whether she needs calculus or not. Let's imagine that calculus ignites a fire in Dorothy. It turns her on more than choir practice. It's just something about numbers and calculators and the grip of a number 2 Ticonderoga wooden pencil in your writer's fist. Anyway, Dorothy was very exhausted, so she laid down on her bed. Her little dog, Turner, hopped up with her, laid down beside her, and with his little puppy snores, ushered Dorothy into a very deep sleep. When all of a sudden, she was awakened by Turner nudging her shoulder. She opened her sleepy eyes looked at her cell phone and realized, oh boy, I was so whooped from choir practice, I forgot to take Turner on his walk. So she got up, fastened Turner to his harness, and the two set out on the prairie. As you might imagine, the prairie was very dusty. Dorothy would always get a mouthful of this dust during their walks because she liked to talk to Turner out loud. She had a lot of questions for him, like, who's a good boy? Are you a good boy? You gotta go potty? Though Turner never answered her, you could tell by the way he wagged his tush that he felt special. It was nice to be acknowledged. And when the two of them set out on their walks, it was as if the world belonged to just the two of them. Sometimes they'd be gone hours. While they set out on their walks, and Aunt Em would sit on the porch waiting for them to come home. She'd count the tumbleweeds that passed by. Once, she got up to 76 tumbleweeds that passed by before the two made it home. But this particular day, Turner spied a prairie dog in the distance. Now, I don't know if there are prairie dogs in Kansas. This story is not based on fact. I would think prairie dogs are found on the prairie. I don't know. If you're from Kansas, tweet at me. It's Sleeping with Heather Pod, and it's at, and then it's 3 Z's as in zebra, with Heather. So yeah, like I was saying, if you live in Kansas and you know for a fact that prairie dogs reside in Kansas, do us a flavor fave and let us know. I'd be very interested. But anyway, I digress. So this prairie dog starts hopping through the prairie, or whatever prairie dogs do. Do they run or scurry? I know they like to stand on 2 feet, which is really adorable. Prairie dogs are so cool. I just love them. Imagine the prairie dog scampers off, and little Turner gets very excited and begins to chase after it, which sends Dorothy on a wild chase to catch Turner, because obviously he pulled so hard and yanked his leash free of her grip. For those of you trying to go to bed and getting aggravated because the story has holes in it, oh, what do you mean Turner got away? Didn't she hook up his harness? Well, yeah, but you've never seen a one-eyed, 3-legged rescue pit bull get this excited over a prairie dog. You just have to imagine. Anyway, Turner takes off like a cannonball and follows this prairie dog down a very secluded path. He and Dorothy had walked this area for years. He had never noticed this path before. And Dorothy is chasing after him, running out of breath. And I just realized that you're about to go to sleep. And now you're worried about Turner. Will Dorothy catch up to him? Will he catch the prairie dog? Let me put your mind at ease now. Yes and no. The prairie dog runs down this path, and all of a sudden, it was as if they weren't in Kansas anymore. It was green and lush, and there were all these colorful flowers from these cactus-looking things. I don't know, maybe there was a banana tree. We'll throw that in there. Anyway, Turner was hot on this prairie dog's tail, and Dorothy wasn't much further behind them. When all of a sudden, prairie dog jumps down a hole, as prairie dogs do. And wouldn't you know, Turner jumped in right after him. When Dorothy reached the hole, she yelled down, "Turner, Turner, come back." To her surprise, the hole echoed back. How deep can this be? She asked herself. Sounds pretty cavernous. I should go down after him. The problem was, Dorothy wasn't a prairie dog or a one-eyed, three-legged rescue pit bull. She had hips, like a lot of women. And all of a sudden, this owl flew in and rested on a tree nearby. And the owl said, "Who?" Dorothy said, "It's my dog, Turner. I have to chase after him. I gotta get down the hole." To which the owl replied, "Who?" Dorothy said, "My dog, Turner. He's a one-eyed, three-legged rescue pit bull." To which the owl dutifully replied, "Who?" In her embarrassment, Dorothy realized what the owl was trying to ask. And she said, "Oh, I'm Dorothy. I live about 3 miles as the crow flies to that dusty old house up on the hill. You can almost see it from here if you squint." But when she turned to find her house, it was no longer there. It seemed the whole world had changed with this landscape. The owl said, Welcome to Narnia. I see you are interested in getting down that hole so you can find Turner and Mr. Rabbit Feet. Now, Dorothy was the one to ask who, to which the owl replied, "Oh, Mr. Rabbit Feet. That's the name of your puppy dog's new friend. It seems an odd thing to call a prairie dog Mr. Rabbit Feet. But you see, he isn't just any prairie dog. He's the fastest prairie dog west of Kentucky. And so we dubbed him Mr. Rabbit Feet." Dorothy realized the time was ticking and she really must grab Turner if they were going to make it home for dinner. The owl said, "No worries. You can fit down that hole if you eat an apple from that tree over there." Dorothy followed the direction of his feathery little flappy owl wing, and she picked the ripest Macintosh from the vine and began to nosh on this apple. When all of a sudden, she realized that this apple was poison, and very quickly found herself drowsy. Her limbs began to feel like anchors, and her eyelids were as heavy as lead. She lay down in the grassy area next to the hole, and the malicious owl silently took off, flapping his silent little flappy owl wings. A long time passed by. How much time? No one really knows. Since this is Dorothy's story, and the only people she ever shared it with spied her with a look of skepticism, she learned to keep it a secret, and so she did. Anyway, all of a sudden, Dorothy felt drip, drip, drip on her face, and the drips started very slow at first, and then became rather moderate. When she opened her eyes, she realized that this wasn't an ordinary rain. This was rainbow rain. The drops covered everything, and with it, splashes of red and yellow and blue and indigo and orange and magenta. Anyway, her eyes opened wide to see such a sight. That would be pretty interesting, to almost watch the ground become a twister board. Remember the game of Twister? It rained birthday parties for a time. Does anyone ever play Twister anymore? We're always on our phones. What about competitive Twister championships? I wonder if that's a thing. I see a market. Anyway, here it was, many hours since Turner chased Mr. Rabbit Feet into the hole. Just before Dorothy was put on an apple spell, which led up to this deluge of colors painting everything in sight. The trees, the ground. But something funny started to happen. The more it rained on Dorothy, the more she began to shrink. And with every raindrop that hit the top of her head, she grew smaller and smaller until she was about the size of a garden gnome. Yes, I realize garden gnomes come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and professions. I would say Dorothy was now the size of a mole, which meant she could easily fit down that hole and grab Turner so that they could be home in time for dinner. Now you may ask yourselves, boy, what was Aunt Em cooking at night? This dinner occasion sounds like a pretty important one to be had. Well, I'm very happy you asked, because I actually happen to have Aunt Em's cookbook in front of me. Let's thumb through this real quick to imagine what Dorothy must have been rushing home to. All right, let's see. Page 23. Strawberry rhubarb pie. That's nice. I've made that once. I'm not very good at pies, or at least the lattice work. That to me has always been the most impressive part of a pie. I don't know, it's almost pretentious. Like, hey, I made you this pie, and not only is it delicious, but I cut out these little shoestring pie crust thingies. And because I'm so good at calculus, I was able to figure out which ones would lay across the pie fast so that you have this beautiful lattice looking concoction sculpture to behold before you. I would like to be good at lattice work so I could say, yeah, not only is this pie delicious, but I also know math, which would be kind of a flex baller thing to do, I suppose. Anyway, to Dorothy, speaking of math, she was very good at math. And she realized, oh boy, if I'm the size of a mole, my legs are very tiny, and they won't carry me as far or as fast as Mr. Rabbit feet, or as far and fast as Turner's 3 legs. So all of a sudden, Dorothy had a brilliant idea. She would befriend a squirrel and ride on its back for transportation, which is such a great idea if you're about the size of a mole. Or maybe she was more the size of a field mouse. Yeah, that's actually a really cute thought. A field mouse making friends with a squirrel and hopping on its back for like day trips and stuff. You know, nothing too far. Maybe the mountains, maybe next weekend the beach. Then why wouldn't a field mouse and squirrel want to hang out together on a beach? Seagulls seem to live pretty comfortably off their catches. I don't know. Last time I was at the beach, a group of seagulls tried to hustle me for popcorn. So I can only imagine what seagulls sustain themselves on. But yeah, I think like the squirrel could give the field mouse a ride to the beach, and in return, the field mouse would prove himself to be a worthy passenger by teaching the squirrel how to surf. That's right. Or, you know, maybe the squirrel has a hard time reaching the bits of his back. He always misses when he applies sunscreen. And how convenient would it be, since the field mouse took a ride on your back anyway, if he could get the spots you missed? Speaking of critters on the beach, what do you call a cat on the beach? Sandy claws. Speaking of claws, are field mice, do they have paws or claws? Like, I would think field mice had little nails. And like, I guess depending on the mouse, they could use them as claws. I don't know. Yeah. Or, I don't know, mice are so tiny and cute. Would you call them paws? Because, like kittens and doggies and bears, they all have paws. Koala bears, what do they have? They have paws, right? Even though koalas aren't technically bears. They're marsupials or whatever. I'm really starting to wonder, what is the difference between paws and claws? I guess when I think claws, I think of like the talons on birds of prey, and paws, they're for like fuzzy, cute animals. So I'm going to consider that the difference. I can live with that. Anyway, oh yeah, I almost forgot where we were. Let's back up a little bit. Speaking of like the outdoors and our field mouse and squirrel friend, like if I was a squirrel and my best friend was a field mouse, I would take them camping all the time because, there's nothing like communing with the rest of nature under a starry sky with an orchestra of night thingies cricketing and croaking in the back. Maybe the whoo of a lone owl or the howl of a pack of wolves. What do you call wolves? A pack? Yes, a pack, obviously. Shame on me, I should know that. I'm in the home of the wolf pack, North Carolina University, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think my little field mouse friend would enjoy that. Would you maybe like to go camping? Do you think maybe the sound of crickets would help you fall asleep sooner? Don't worry, I'll get back to Dorothy. She's been on like this wild ride, hasn't she? It's like, that's what you get. Like, that's the price of exhaustion when you're just spreading yourself thin between calculus and and choir practice, which, you're not even crazy about to begin with. But because Aunt Em is running for mayor next month, she asked that you join the church, kind of get to know your neighbor and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah, we'll get to Dorothy. I sort of feel for her, like, that's a lot, she just wanted a nap. She just needs a break, And, anyway, she's got to get into finding her puppy. But wait a minute. I have an idea. idea. What if we did this? Let's pack and we will go to the woods, set up camp, and stake host a stakeout, or what's that thing when cops stake out a location? Yeah, anyway, we'll do that so that we can keep our eyes peeled for Turner and Mr. Rabbit Feet. We'll keep our eyes and ears peeled. So let's take a look at our inventory so far. Let's see what we got. I see we've got like a really cute teepee type tent. This looks really hard to put together. Have you used this before? Yeah, mine's a little more octagon. Yeah, and instead of like it has that lightweight poles you sort of pull together. Yeah, no, I love teepees. I spent the night in one once. They're pretty cool. Okay, so you're gonna bring that. I'm going to, let me pack the cooler. We're gonna need some ice. Maybe a couple beers. Make sure you bring lots of water. It's important to stay hydrated. All right, maybe some dry ingredients now. You know, what would really be the point of camping if we didn't make s'mores? So I'm going to... What's that? Oh no, we don't need a special set of utensils for that. Haven't you ever made a s'more before? It's really easy. You're going to love them and you'll get the hang of it. I'll warn you right now that your first couple s'mores, they're either gonna turn out burnt or underdone. Marshmallows are a lot to cover. Maybe I'd love to, stay and explain them to you all night. But I'll tell you what, let's get these things packed up and on the road so we could search for Dorothy and Turner and Mr. Rabbit Feet, the prairie dog. So, all right, fine, I'm going to bring the s'mores. Yeah, you can bring that radio. Oh wow, is that a CD player? Yeah, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Does it take batteries? Oh, the big batteries. Alright, well that's cool and all. But CDs are pretty much obsolete. So what are we going to listen to while we're out there? Oh, I don't know, like I have nothing against Kenny G. And if that's what you want to listen to while we wait for Dorothy to run by, yeah, be my guest. Yeah, that's fine. You have Oh, Sugar Ray, right? I haven't heard of that band since high school. I mean, I don't really have a lot of CDs. But hold on a second. Let me take a trip back in time to my very first concert, which was Weezer. And I think their Green album was pretty popular at the time. So while I'm here at the first concert I've ever been to, let me pick up one of their CDs real quick. Oh, it won't take me long. Well, yeah, I have to jump back quite a few years, but I mean, you're gonna bring a CD player and we're just gonna listen to what? Sugar Ray and Kenny G all night? All right. That's okay, fine. No Weezer, it's fine. Maybe while we're out there, I'll show you how you can use your cell phone as a jukebox. Okay, where was I? Oh, right. We're gonna need some kind of insect repellent. And make sure that you pack a plastic garbage bag so that we can, pick up anything that we brought in with us. Maybe even some litter along the way. It doesn't hurt anyone to pick up litter once in a while. Oh, and I almost forgot. We're going to need matches. Maybe some gasoline. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not too worried about stopping to get firewood or barbecue briquettes. I think if we get there soon enough, we could forage for some branches and twigs and pine cones that have fallen. Shouldn't be too difficult. So, okay. And, let's see. Oh, I almost forgot the sleeping bags. Yeah, it's a good question. It's been around 63 at night. But if you get up on the mountain where we're going, it's usually about 20 degrees cooler. So we should expect to pack enough clothes and whatnot, for 40 degrees to sleep in 40-degree weather comfortably, 43 degrees. But this is a very insulated tent. I'm sure we'll be fine. I think let's grab a lantern in case one of our cell phones die. Yeah, we don't want to be a creek, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I feel like we're forgetting something. Oh, I know. Let's bring your telescope because I hear that Pleiades is in the third house and Mercury is now in retrograde. And let's see, while we're waiting, listening to Kenny G, let's just do a little stargazing. Wouldn't that be fun? Oh, how long it's been since I looked through a telescope. They're so magical. I almost forgot how cool they were. part of me wants to interrupt this podcast and look them up on Amazon. I went on a date once with someone very unique. It was a second date, I think. Anyway, he brought a telescope, and although we shivered in the cold and we could see our breath, and we were able to see Milky Way or whatever. I don't know what the constellations are. Anyway, that was a fun time. But back to constellations, like constellations, I don't know. And they're cool because like people can, pick them out. I know people who could say, oh, there's the Vega and the Lyran community or whatever. But to me, stars just kind of look like buckshot on a dark velvet cloth. They look, stars in the sky, I would equivalate, I would equalize that. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I would equate it to being in high school and being forced to take those standardized tests. The ones that are really stupid and, you're quizzed on things your teachers never even taught you. It's like, how do I know? Maybe I'll just mark C for every bubble on this page. Then I'll turn it over and I will fill out the bubbles in the form of Orion's belt. There we go. So yeah, I guess that's what I imagine, or that's what I feel when I look into the night sky. Just this like chaos. All of this other world and these galaxies and the planets, and there are so many galaxies. I hadn't realized it until, I don't know, later in life. How magnificent our universe is. Which reminds me, as a kid, I had a lot of questions about space. I guess I always wished that I could go to space really quick in a rocket. And when we left Earth's atmosphere, I could just stick my hand out of the craft for just a moment and drop some change into the milky black abyss. I'd want to wait in silence as long as I could, just to audibly measure the size of the universe. How long would it be until you heard a ching chang clink of change landing on the universe floor? I wondered how old I'd be when I finally heard it. Anyway, I think I'm getting a little off topic again. We were just talking about telescopes, which must mean we're going camping, which could only mean one thing. Dorothy is the size of a field mouse, and she is chasing Turner, who is chasing Little Rabbit Feet, the prairie dog. So Dorothy hops. That's a funny word. She hitches a ride with a squirrel named Bernardo. Yeah, let's see if I can remember that name later on. So Dorothy and her new companion, Bernardo, take off down the hole, and they're going faster than ever. Dorothy could never fathom how fast this could be in her normal size, if she were her normal size. And as Bernardo was making his way along the very complicated underground burrowing system that most animals use for transportation. Oh my goodness. Imagine it's kind of like a terminal, like a bus terminal, and there are all of these little extra hallways. Well, sometimes you think you're supposed to zig when it turns out you're better off zagging. And that's how Bernardo found himself guessing and second guessing and, scratching his nuts, wondering which path Turner could have taken to chase Little Rabbit Feet, the prairie dog. Not just any prairie dog, the fastest prairie dog this side of Kentucky. No, in fact, he was even faster than that. He was the fastest prairie dog this side of New Jersey. So, eventually, after enough switchbacks, they discovered that this tunneling system actually led to the very same spot. It was starting to appear off in the horizon, and as Dorothy and Bernardo grew closer, more came into focus. It was a beautiful gully, and there were fireflies, and it was dusk, and all the little insects were dancing on the water, and the fish that swam up to greet them made little ripples throughout the lake. And just as they were about to breach the entrance, this rainbow flow of water bum rushed them, taking them off their balance and forcing them and pushing them toward the gully. They careened through the entrance Imagine the fastest slide at the water park, only with like unicorn vomit sliding down it. And that's sort of the scene. If you can imagine. Anyway, Dorothy and Bernardo hold on to a branch and hop down onto a lily pad that was twirling and cascading across the water. They floated it down the creek. They began to float with this lily pad. And all of a sudden, it was as if they were in a Monet painting. Only this one depicted a one-eyed, three-legged pit bull and a very, very fast prairie dog known as Little Rabbit Feet. And they were merrily floating along the same river. And they were merrily floating along the same river when suddenly Dorothy said, "Hey, Bernardo, I would like you to meet my one-eyed, three-legged rescue pit bull named Turner." And Turner, this is my new friend, Bernardo the squirrel. Bernardo was very intimidated, as you might imagine. He had never spoke to a dog before. In fact, he despised dogs. I mean, one of his cousins did go on to marry a dog. And yeah, he was fine and everything. But they just didn't get into politics or religion. So Bernardo thought, well, I guess maybe not all dogs are irritating. Like, this dog could probably be pretty cool. And that intuition, that hunch was sealed with a kiss from Turner. And Dorothy thought, "Oh, Turner, I'd love to pat you on the head and lead you home for dinner. But look at how very, very small I am. I'm the size of a field mouse. And I would have never caught up to you if it weren't for my new friend, Bernardo. How do you suppose I could be back to my normal size again?" Bernardo said, "Oh, it's easy. Not only am I a super fast squirrel with a stellar sense of direction, I also happen to be the town witch doctor. I'll tell you what you're gonna need. You're going to need a tulip full of rainbow-ry. Sounds kind of funny. Rainbow-ry. Yes, anyway, you want to get a tulip full of that stuff. And then you're going to need one wing let me consult my witch handbook again. Oh, you're going to need one feather from a flappy little feathery owl. Easy, right? Not so fast. You're also, and I think this is the last thing, you're going to have to find, retrieve an eyebrow from a sleeping bat. But bats are so creepy, thought Dorothy. And besides, how am I supposed to pull that off when I'm so small? Bernardo recognized the doubt in his new friend's face. And so he ran to the nearest chestnut tree, because in this forest, all chestnut trees obviously have payphones in them. And who was Bernardo going to call, you may ask? Well, he happened to be married to Bambi, the resident law enforcement deer. That's right. Bambi was the main chief of police in the forest. Sometimes her and Bernardo would take criminals down to the station together, because Bernardo was so fast and had an excellent sense of direction. And obviously, he has excellent taste in deer, because, Bambi is really savvy, intelligent, and successful. She's probably the most gifted police officer deer in North America, if you would believe it. All right. So the reason Bernardo was calling his partner was to say, hey, look, babe, I need a solid. I need a favor to ask you. I have a favor to ask. I made this friend. She's a really good person. She just found her dog. I'm really excited for her. An owl tricked her into eating an apple, which made her very tiny when the rainbow rain fell on her head. But now she would like to be back to normal size. And, so she could give Turner, her dog, a pat on the head and help him lead and help lead him home for dinner time. "Well," said Bambi, "what can I possibly do to help?" The squirrel is like, "Well, you know that I am the chief medical witch doctor in these parts, and you know that I have a propensity for making very tiny things big, as you know, my dear. And I need rainbow rain from a tulip, which I have because it actually just rainbow just rained here just a little bit ago, and the fields are lush with tulips. Or did I say turnips? Anyway, I think it's tulips. Yeah, the official flower of Amsterdam, right? So, yeah, I've got that covered easy. And then let's see here. Oh, the other thing. Oh no, I can't remember the other thing. But the last thing I do need, and the hardest thing, would be the eyebrow of a bat. And I know you must have some buddies down at the station who would be willing to donate an eyebrow so that my friend could grow big again. And Bambi said, "Yeah, absolutely, I got you covered on the bat eyebrow. And don't worry if you can't remember the other item. I hear that the glow from one firefly will also make that spell work. I'm very familiar with the one you're talking about. And I think I may even have been the one to first alchemate that concoction. So you could rest assured that your friend will be big again in no time." Cool. So, this little squirrel, Bernardo, he wiped the sweat from his brow and told Dorothy, "Easy peasy. My wife is gonna pull solid and get one of her friends down at the precinct to donate a bat eyebrow. Why don't you go ahead and pluck that tulip? You see that one? Okay, wait, hold on a second. Okay, it says here that it can't be yellow and it must be red, so go ahead and grab the red one. Very good. And now just dip it over here in the water right here where it rained. Okay, perfect. And let me lasso a firefly out of the sky, because we're going to need the glow from his butt to ignite this incantation. Oh, Bernardo, it's so kind of you to help me out. You know, when I'm big again, I'm going to miss you very much. Why don't you become big like me so that we can hang out more often? Bernardo was very flattered. And as much as he would have loved to hang out with Dorothy once in a while, he realized his wife, Bambi, may not appreciate that type of friendship, which, we can't really blame her. We don't know the story, a lot of relationships are different. So we're just not even here to judge. But yeah, that was some really nice foresight and some good thinking from Bernardo. And he said, "Oh, Dorothy, I won't forget you. In fact, how about as soon as I, find the time, I'll take little rabbit feet with me and we'll visit our old friends, Dorothy and Turner again. That would be pretty nice." So Dorothy said, "Okay, I look forward to that. Thank you very much for all you've done. And thank your wife for helping me out. And I think I'm just going to rest my head here a moment while we wait for your wife." Well, I could, actually, I'm so tiny, I can crawl right on Turner's little neck here and make myself really cozy right between his shoulder blades. I can feel his heartbeat and his little puppy snores. And oh no, I think I'm falling asleep again. All of a sudden, Dorothy woke up to drip, drip, drip. It had begun to rain, and the droplets falling on her tin roof woke her up. She was in her bed again, the same size she was before she fell asleep. And there was Turner snoring right beside her, wriggling his little body to get closer. She looked at Turner, pat him on the head, and said, "Oh, Turner, I'm so happy we're back home." The end. Now, did you like that story? I made it up on the spot. Yeah, sometimes I do that when I sit out by a campfire and make up